Okay, so the purpose for today is to check out how you can deploy your application to App Engine. An App Engine is a service or a product offered by Google Cloud Platform. And it is this kind of platform as a service kind of product. And platform as a service means that as a developer, you are mostly concerned about your own application, and you do not have to worry about managing some server hardware or server configuration. So this is in contrast to so-called infrastructure as a service type of cloud product, which would be, for example, a virtual private server, where you rent basically empty computers from the cloud, which you then configure and manage and maintain all the time. So a platform as a service is where you are using an existing application platform to host your application, whatever that might be. So App Engine is a platform as a service kind of product. So it is quite easy thing to use, but yet powerful. So that's the reason why we are using it. So every one of you have received or should have received a message in our course Teams theme, where you have information about how you can redeem $50 worth of credits, what you can spend on Google Cloud Platform, not just on App Engine, but in general Cloud Platform products. So please check out that one. It should be in the general discussion channel. There is a message about that, and you will need to use your student email to redeem the credits. So there are one per student available of those. Okay, so App Engine allows you to host an application in the cloud, and App Engine supports a set of these programming languages: Node.js, Java, Ruby, C#, Go, Python, and PHP. So today I have prepared a small demo application where I have a Node.js based server application, and the purpose of the server application is to act as an API. And then I have a React application, which is then the client application, and the React application will connect to the API application and request some data from there. And then it will the React application will draw the results on the screen. And there is a database which the API is accessing. So we have this Node.js case here, what I will be presenting. So indeed, the App Engine, it is this fully managed. So this is the platform as a service kind of product, where you as a developer do not need to worry about the infrastructure and the maintenance of the infrastructure. So what the App Engine offers when you have an application running there, you can, of course, monitor your application, and you have logging capabilities for your application. So if you, for example, have console log statements in your application, which print something to the log, you have access to those logs. And you can also see that if your application is, for example, generating error responses, HTTP responses, or throwing some error codes, you can see those in the App Engine as well. Then the App Engine offers quite easy this kind of versioning. So every time when you upload a new version of your application, the previous version is available still there. It is just set to non-operational status. And in the case that you need to go back with these versions, you can easily go back. And you can also have multiple versions running simultaneously, so that you could, if you, for example, have a big application, you could, for example, roll out some new testing features in some restricted areas, for example, in some country or to some percentage of users. So that's what it also offers. And then it offers automatic scaling capabilities. So if you build an application and it gets really popular, you have lots and lots of users, so the App Engine will scale your application so that all those users will be served accordingly and with minimal latencies. So this is also something which works out of the box. And you also get managed and free SSL certificates. And also, what is really good for our student practice purposes is that you can also get a name address, a free domain of it is a generated domain address, but yet it is better than just having a pure IP address. And you have the SSL active by default there, so that's a good positive aspect as well. Okay, so the application today, what I have here looks like this. That it is a super simple demonstration application, and these two parts, this hello and world, is now information which is fetched by the client application from the server, and the server has stored this data in a database. So here I have now this application. It is running on my local host on my own computer, and I have also a database, a MySQL database here on my own computer. So how does this look like, this application? It is visible here. So I have a client, and then I have a server. So the server application looks like this. This is an Express.js based application, only 30 lines long. So here you can see we have the basic Express dependencies. We are activating the CORS, cross-origin resource sharing. This allows our client application from a different origin, different port or different domain to access the server. Then I have some database configuration options. These are here just for demo purposes. I have written here comments that you should not have your database credentials visible like this in your source code, especially so when you have a public repository for your source code. So this is something what you should not do, but I have done it here for easy visibility that what is going on in the application. Then I am using here a database library called Knex. So this is kind of general purpose database library which works with multiple databases, for example MySQL and PostgreSQL and these kind of different SQL based libraries, databases. So I'm using this Knex. It offers me quite easy way to access a database, at least regarding the basic operations. Okay, so I have two routes in my application. Here is the traditional hello world, which when I have a path which doesn't have any path information at all, so then it just returns the hello world text here. Then I have a second path or a second route for the path dp demo with get method. When this is requested, I will select everything from a table called example table. And here you can see this Knex being used. So it is this kind of object-oriented interface for a database. I don't have to write SQL commands as strings. But in any case, this is basically select star from example table. The same as that query. Here I get the results, and these are the results then. And then I simply start the server application in port, which has been defined here. So it has been fixed to port 3000. So if I go and send these requests to port 3000, localhost, I get hello world. And then if I send dp demo, I get this JSON response, an array which has two objects. You can see here it's an array with two objects. So content hello and then content world. So this is the purpose of the API. And indeed, I have now here a local database that I'm using. Okay, so this is then the React application. So the React will simply fetch information from the API and then print out here the results. And this is the way how it looks like in source code. This has been created with the create React app project, and it is a single file application. So here I have this app component function declared. I have a single state variable with the name data. I have set data function what I can use to update the data state variable. And then I have here the use effect hook, which is simply sending a fetch request, an HTTP request to my local host with the port 3000 and then the DP demo path. I get here the response. It is converted to JSON structure, and then the whole response data, the one which we just saw, the array with 2 objects, it is then stored to the state variable data with the set data method or function. And when the state variable updates, this component is re-rendered. And then here I have this data.map. So I basically loop over the whole content of the data state variable, and of every element I convert into this kind of JSX structure. So a simple div and then the value of the content. Here I have basically an if statement, a condition to check that if the data is undefined, then this is not executed. So this map is only executed when the data is defined. Okay, so this is the React application part. So now to get this running in Google App Engine, we have a couple of things to do. I've here prepared a list of steps what we need to do to achieve this. So we need to activate the App Engine product in the Google Cloud Platform. Then we will need to modify our server application to work in the cloud. We will need to modify our client application to work in the cloud. And then we will need to create a release build of our React application, which now is create React app based. If you have some other kind of tool set for your React application, then the steps may vary. And then finally, we need to deploy both of our applications to App Engine. We have now 2 applications what we will be deploying to App Engine. And I have already prepared in advance one step. So now, because my server application is using database, here is the database configuration. Here I have a database query command. So I'm using a database. I have already in advance, I have followed my own instructions, what I have shared to you earlier. So I have followed those instructions. I have created a Cloud SQL database instance to the cloud where I have a MySQL database running with the exact same structure and content what I have here in my own local machine. And I have done that by this SQL export file, or how do you say, command file. So this is the file what I have, what is the output when I export the database structure and contents from MySQL on my local machine. So here a database with this name is created. It will basically drop an existing table if it exists. It will create a new table structure called example table. So this is the table what I was reading in my code. It has these 2 fields, and then there is the data also being inserted there. So I have imported this SQL file to my Cloud SQL database. So that is ready to go. That is one step what I have already done in advance. So I will not be replicating that one here during this session. And the reason for that is that there is a certain delay in creating the Cloud SQL instance. It varies. It might be even 10 minutes or so. So I did not want to wait for that during this session. But that is ready. And because I have that ready, I have also created a project also to Google Cloud Platform. So Google Cloud Platform operates with the concept of these projects. Basically, that you should have one project per one application. So now when my application needs SQL database, I have created this Cloud SQL database instance inside this existing project. Yeah, I will switch from my personal user. I have also personal projects running here. So I will switch to my school account. So here I have now, this is now the project, name of the project that I have created in advance. So Guy demo project 2022-2. And here I already have a Cloud SQL instance running. We can go on and check it out from here, from the menu. Here is the SQL in the navigation menu. And here we can see we have a demo database here. And we can check out that we have also the tables. The database is here. So here we have this Guy demo DB existing. And I have also created a user in advance, this test user. So I have created the database configuration here to the cloud to match this configuration what I have here. I have the same user, this user password, and then I have the database name with this name. And then the database contents like seen before. Okay, so this is ready to go. So now what we need to do next is that we are going to be creating the app engine or activating the app engine here for this project. So I select the app engine from the navigation menu, and then I go here and click the create application. Now I need to select a region, and I will select the same region as I selected from my Cloud SQL database. It is this Europe West. So you can see there are multiple regions. These are basically physical data center locations what are available. So I will select this Europe West. It is in Belgium. That is the same what I have selected from my Cloud SQL. You can have the SQL instance in a different region than your app engine, but if you have it, the queries will be quite slow. So make sure to make it so that it is from the same region for your whole application. Okay, so that's now creating. Then what I also would need to do, but what I have done already a long time ago, I would need to have installed the Google Cloud command line interface, the CLI toolset. So if you don't have yet this installed, you need to install this one. For Windows, here are the different operating systems that are available. For Windows, here is the Google Cloud installer package. So just download that one and execute it, and it will install everything what you need. So we will be using the command line interface to deploy our application to App Engine. So you will need to have this one operational at some point. Okay, so here now this is ready. Now it is asking that what kind of App Engine project we want to have. Do we want to have which one of these programming languages, and then which one of these environments. So App Engine has multiple environments. They have, let's see, where would be good documentation about this. Here, choosing the right App Engine environment. So the App Engine has two kinds of environments. It has the standard environment, and then it has so-called flexible environment. So the standard environment supports those languages what were already shown, and those languages are locked to certain versions. So here you can find a list of those languages and their versions, what the standard environment supports. If you need to have some other programming language version than what was listed here, or if you want to have some other language entirely, then you can use the App Engine flexible environment. So that's the difference. And this flexible environment can also run applications made with something known as Docker containers. So that's the difference. This standard environment is cheaper and is super good for situations where you want to run applications for totally free or for very low cost. So that's the reason why we are going to be choosing that one. But here, we don't need to follow now these steps. This is just an example that how you can get started. So we will do the deployment phase from the command line later on. Okay, so now we have done two things. We have activated the App Engine service to our App Engine product to our project, and then we should have downloaded the command line interface tools, the CLI tools. That is something that I had done earlier already, so I will not do it again here. Okay, so then when we want to start to use the command line toolset, we will need to give command gcloud init. So all the command line tools are activated with the gcloud prefix, and then there are different commands available. So gcloud init is the command which initializes the command line environment for your project settings. So here I already have existing settings. So I have created a project what I want to use. So I will choose this number 1. I want to now activate a project to this command line toolset. First, it asks that which user account you want to use. I have here multiple accounts for Google Cloud Platform, so I'm going to choose the number 2, my OAMC address. Then it asks that which project do you want to use or activate now for the command line toolset. So I'm going to be choosing now number 3 because that is the name of the project what I will be using in this demonstration. So Guy demo project 2022 and then -2. So number 3, check that. Do you want to configure default compute region and zone? Yes, no. Well, we might just as well do it. Here it again asks that what is the default region where the products will be set. So I will be choosing here this option number 17, Europe West 1B. That is again the same where I have created my cloud database, but there are other options here as well. So let's select option 17. So now it is good to go. Now it has configured the basic settings and it is indicating here that what are the default settings what I just chose and selected. Okay. Then now because I already know that I will be creating an application to App Engine which connects to my Google Cloud Cloud SQL databases, I will need to activate one internal API in the Google Cloud Platform. And I know this because I have checked this from the App Engine documentation where they have information described that what do you need to do when you want to connect to a Cloud SQL. So I have checked that and I know that I need to activate something known as Cloud SQL Admin API. So let's find that one. Here, this Cloud SQL Admin API. And I will need to click here on the enable. So now that is enabled. Now everything is in place so that my application from App Engine can connect to the Cloud SQL database instance. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be going to our server application and do the modifications there, what needs to be done. Previously, I had configurations there that were needed to connect to my local SQL database. Now I need to connect to a cloud SQL database, so of course the addresses are different. Then I will need to have some instructions for the app engine that how should the app engine start my application in general, and then I need to do also something for the port. Previously I have hard-coded that it is the port 3000 where the server application starts, but now when we are running application in the cloud, in the app engine, we need to respect the port settings of that environment. So these things are now what need to be done. So let's begin from the last one. So from the port settings. So here I have the port 3000. I cannot use this port 3000. If I leave this like this, the application will not start. So the app engine will not accept that one. Instead, what I need to do is that I will need to use the port what is given to this application. And the app engine gives the port through something known as environment variable. And I can read environment variables from global variable called process.env, and then from the env I can read value port. And then I will put here OR statement, so that this will also work in local development environment where maybe I don't have this one defined at all. So if this is not defined, then we will fall back to value 3000. But if the environment variable port has some value, then we will be using that one. Okay, so that's something what we need to set. And then now when we have a node-based application, I will use the command line interface of the Google Cloud Platform to upload this application eventually to the App Engine, and it will do so that it will upload everything what is in the defined folder. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create here an ignore file which defines that which files or folders to ignore during this upload process. So the logic will be the same what I have here with the git ignore, so that when I do version control commits, I don't want to store information what is inside these node modules, because that can always be regenerated based on the package.json, package-log.json files. So I'm going to create here a new file called gcloud-ignore, like so. And here I will ignore node modules. I will also ignore .git, which is a hidden folder which contains all the Git history. And then I will ignore the git ignore file itself. So these three I will ignore from my cloud deployment. These are not needed. The Google Cloud or the App Engine will execute npm install, so the dependencies will be there as needed. So I will not need to upload the whole node modules folder there. So that's the reason why I have the gcloud-ignore file here. And the file name must be .gcloud-ignore. If you have some other name, then it will not work. Okay, so then back to the source code modifications and to the database modifications. Now here I have hard-coded that the database should always connect to this address, basically localhost IP address. But that is not the address where our database instance is now reachable. Instead, the Google Cloud SQL database instance is reachable by something known as Unix socket communication methods, and there is a certain kind of address structure for there. And how you give the Unix socket address to the database driver, which in this case is the Node MySQL driver, which is used by the Connects in my case, is that you will need to give the address something like this, that this is Cloud SQL, and then here would then be the server, the Cloud SQL database instance or server, however you want to call, connection string. And what is that connection string? I can go on and check it out from here, from my database instance. I activate it here, and here in the main dashboard of this instance, there is this section connect to this instance. Here is the IP address, and then there is the connection name. So this is the one what we will copy. I will click here, copy to clipboard, and then it goes here. So this would be then the socket path. Socket path for the database. Okay, but now we cannot have here two basically addresses where to connect. We have the host and then we have the socket path. So we need to choose that when we are in let's say local environment, we can use this one. Then when we are in the App Engine, we will need to use this one, but both cannot be active at the same time. So again, we will make an if statement which checks that a certain environment variable, which will be set automatically in the App Engine. So we will check that if that environment variable has a certain value, then we will use this address. And then if that environment variable is not present or has some other value, then we will use this one. So we will basically go here that if the process and then the env, and then here it is suggesting dot node env. So if we are in production, so this is a environment variable and the value what the Google App Engine will set. So if we are here, then we will use this socket path. So I will go here and dp config connection socket path and set this value here. Delete that one there. Then else, this is the local case on my, if this is not set, then we will set the host for this value and delete the host value from there. So now I create the dp-config object. I have here basic connection information. I do not have yet the host or the socket path. That is then set here later on based on this if statement. Okay. That's set then. Then what we will do is that we will create the information for the App Engine, that how to start. And this is now again a file what needs to be present here in the server folder. So this server application will be one so-called service in the App Engine application. Our application will have two services, the server service and then the client service. So we will create these deployment files. For both of them. So I will create a file called server appengine.yaml. The name of this file can be anything. It must be of the YAML type, however. So we will refer to this file with the command line tool when we start to deploy. And the App Engine documentation describes that what kind of information you can have here. So what we will have here is that we will have information that which programming environment we are going to be using. What is the runtime? We're going to be using Node.js version 16. Then we will need to name our service. What will be the name, what the service will be known as in the app engine. I'll use server. And then if we would like, we could declare some custom environment variables here. So for example, what might be a good practice is that instead of hard coding the database path here, it might be a good idea to put the database path information as an environment variable, just so that it is easy to locate afterwards, especially in the case that if you are using it in multiple locations. So let's do that. So I'm going to create an environment variable called googleappengine db socket, for example, like this. And now I will take this value, what I put here, and put it here. Now when I cut that value from here, now I need to read it from the process.env, and now the environment variable, what I will be using will be this one, googleappengine db socket. This is a variable what I have decided by myself, so now it is there. So using the db connection in the environment variable is a good idea. If not for anything else, then just for that purpose, that if you are using the connection string in multiple locations, then you can find it. Or if you have a large number of files in your project, like in real project you usually have, it's quite cumbersome to start to dig those files to find that where is the database address defined in the first place. So a good practice is to put it into, for example, as an environment variable. So that we have done here now. Okay, so that's it. So now our app engine will know that what programming environment we will use, what name it shall use for this service in the first place, what are our environment variables, and then how does it start our application. That is something what we will need to give information here in the package.json. So the Google App Engine will try to execute npm run start. And with the npm logic, if you have npm run something, the npm will try to find it inside the package.json, inside the script section. So let's define here what is the start command. It is node index.js. And it is index.js because index.js is the name of our file where our application starts. If our application name would be, for example, or the file where the application starts would be, for example, server.js, we would have here node server.js. Okay, so now App Engine has everything in what it needs to operate our server application. Now we need to move on to the client application. We will need to create the same kind of YAML file for the client as well, and then we will need to put now correct connection strings for our client as well, because our client here we have currently hard coded this localhost to the that is this as a string where the connection will go. So that is something what we will need to modify as well. So, and we will give this connection information again through the environment variables. So here into the client root directory, I will create here a file called env. And then here I can declare some environment variables. So I can, for example, here React App API address. So this is now a environment variable, and that can be, for example, now in the development situation, we are here at localhost and at port 3000. So this would be the name of the environment variable what we are using, and then this is then the value of that variable. So again, how to use it? We will use it here. So we will write here process.env and then React app API address. Process.env, not eng. So now this environment variable contains this part. So we will append with the plus this string there. So now we have the same situation. Okay, so now in the env file, this is in the env file because the create React app toolset works with the env file. So it will get the value what is here, and then it will use it in place of here. Now we'll need also the situation that the value for this this environment variable in the production case. This is for the development. We will need to for the production. We can write here an env.env.production. So the values from this file will be used in the production mode when we have built our client application for production. So here, now we will need to define that what is the address for that. I happen to know that what will be the eventual address for our application when we deploy it. The address structure for these services, which are inside an App Engine project, are documented. So you can find that information from there. So I will just write, because I already know it. So it will be first the service name. We named our server service to be named as server. So then there is the dash, and then comes the name of the project, and then comes a real dot, evidr.apps.com. So this is the path which the App Engine will use for our server service. So here is the name of the service. This is the name of our project. This information will be seen later on when we have deployed it. But I know that this will be the path. Hopefully I did not make any mistake. If I made a mistake, then I will need to fix it here. Okay, so now we have values for this React app API address environment variable in the production environment and also here in the development environment. And I have put that environment variable in use everywhere where I'm making these HTTP requests. So now I know that those address should work. Okay. So how will this client application be built? It is so that I go to the client, I will execute npm run build. So npm run build is a command offered by the create React app as a default, and this is used to build a production version of the application. And the outcome will be static files. It will be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So static files, which you will need to host just as the same as you would host a regular HTML file, some regular HTML files. That's the reason why, for example, here there is this that you may serve it with a static server. So this is that if you want to serve this production mode here on your own computer, meaning that you want to start a web server, it offers here the serve. But now we will deploy the static content to the app engine so that the app engine will act as our server and host our content. So where is our content then? When we execute this npm run build, the content will appear here in the build folder. So this is a folder which does not exist in your project unless you have executed the npm run build command. So here are all the files. Here is the index.html, and here are the static assets, the JavaScript. So here is now the React application and in all its content. So when we want to deploy our React application, we will need to deploy everything inside this build folder and nothing else. And because of this, we will again create this gcloud ignore file where we can or give information that what content in this folder we do not want to deploy to the app engine. So most certainly it is node modules. So we don't need to have this one. You can have here thousands of files. So needlessly copying these will take time and possibly a lot of time. So we don't want to copy those at all when we deploy. So we want to ignore those. Then we want to ignore here everything inside this src folder because that's the source code. But we don't need it. We have our build version here in the build folder. Then same thing for this public folder. We don't need this one. We can ignore that. And we don't need the possible Git folder here. And we don't need the git ignore file either. Everything else we should have in place. Well, you could possibly ignore also these env files because that information will already have been used in those in the build phase. But this is the most important, this node modules. That's the one which you should definitely ignore in your gcloud ignore file. Okay, so one more step remains, and that step is to write a similar YAML file, what we did here for the server. Now we need to do it for the client. So let's do that. I'm going to name it here client app engine YAML. Okay. Runtime. Now, for the server, we used the node. Now for this, because this is now going to be hosting static content, so we basically need to have a static server. In advance, I have checked from the Google Cloud App Engine documentation that the way to do it is to use Python version 3.9. Then we will need to have here service name. Every app engine project will need to have at least one default service. So we name this client to be our default. Then we will need to write something known as handlers. Handlers is a definition what can be used to define that when there is a request to certain path or to certain file, where should that file be retrieved from? Which file should be offered? So we write here URL when there is a request to this path, this empty path, then we will offer these static files from our build folder, and there is the index.html. So we are now saying that send this index.html from here, so it is this file, when there is a request to this empty path. Then we set the other settings, because there will be requests for our static assets, the CSS and JavaScript. The HTML file will have links to those. So we will define here with this kind of expression syntax that for anything else, that if there is any file or any path being requested, then what we will do is that we will offer them from the build folder. And then we will upload, oops, not like this, but like so. All files. Okay, so with this handler configuration, we basically have the outcome of a web server which hosts static content, meaning that we have no application which to execute. When there is a request to some file, that file will be delivered directly as a response. So that is what this handler configuration does. So we will have two services, the client and the server. The server is now a Node service. The client is now just a bunch of static HTML files and CSS and JavaScript. Okay. Now we have done everything what we need to do. Last thing what remains is now to deploy our application to App Engine. So we use the command line toolset for that. gcloud app deploy. Now, if we would have a YAML file directly in this folder, and I'm in the wrong folder, I need to be here in the root. If we would have a YAML file directly here in this folder, we could just give this command. But now when we have YAML files for multiple services inside folders which are under this folder where we currently are, we need to refer to those. So we put here the client app engine YAML. We will deploy that one first. And the second is then the server. Okay, now we are deploying the client and we are deploying the server. Let's see how did it go. Did I forget something? Yes, so I made some mistake. Missing upload attribute for the URL. Okay, yeah, I have forgotten something. So here should also be the upload directive. So upload same index of HTML. Okay, let's try again. Okay, so now it says services to deploy. It will deploy the default service, which is now from the client. It will go to this URL. It will deploy the server service to this address here. So let's see. Yes. So now it takes a while to upload. And if you have forgotten to make the gcloud ignore files, both to the client and Node, then this upload phase will take a much longer time because the Node modules will be uploaded. For the server project, because that's a Node-based project, I think it automatically generates the gcloud ignore file to ignore the Node modules, but the client will have the Node modules, and the App Engine does not recognize that it is now also a Node-based project. So uploading those would take quite a lot of time. So let's see. Now it has uploaded the files, and it is now updating the default service. So it is starting the first App Engine service. We need only to wait for the service update to finish. We can see here, do we see some activity already the App Engine panel. No, not yet. Here are some notifications. Nothing yet there. So let's see how long does this take. So here in the App Engine documentation, there is information about how these web services can be structured in the App Engine, and here it describes about this YAML file. The default name is app.yaml. We used some other name for that, and this is the way how the projects are always structured. So there is the application root. There should be the source files at the same folder as the YAML file. If there is something else, then you need to give that information in the command line when deploying. Okay, now there is some problem. Invalid runtime node 16 specified. Okay. It's for this server node 16. Why is it not working? I have made a typo. It should actually be nodejs 16. Not node 16, but nodejs 16. So it has uploaded the default service, beginning deployed of service server. So the client went just fine, but the server was the problem. So let's try again. Now we can probably see something already here in the App Engine panel because the first service went through. You don't have permission. It has forgotten my account. Okay, so this is the way how the dashboard of an App Engine looks like. Looks like when it has been deployed. So usually here you could see a summary of the data. So requests, latencies, and so on. You could see here the summary of your billing, and then the current load and what kind of errors have been received or made by the application. The server is still updating. Here we have now a public link to our default service. So if we click here, here is already our React application working. It cannot access the database, I mean the API, because we don't have yet that service running. You can see here the request for the DB demo is failing. It is still being created, this server service. But now we can already see that our this client deployment went okay. Let's see how long does the server service update take. Now it has been done. Configuring the network. Okay, now the server has been completed. Let's see. And there we have hello world. Now it is working. Here are the requests now passing. passing, and we are getting good responses. So the application is fully working. Okay, so that concludes our App Engine demonstration. So to recapture the steps, what we needed to do, we needed to activate the App Engine in the Google Cloud Platform. We activated the Cloud SQL admin API, and then we modified our server application, and we modified our client application. We created a release build of our React application with the npm run build, and then with the command line tool, we deployed the client and server application to App Engine, and now they are both running there. We can see them here. Now we probably have some data here as well. So now we have that what is the usage of our application, how many front-end hours have been processed by the App Engine, what is the bandwidth, what is the cloud storage, what kind of requests have been made, how fast, or what is the pace of those. And here we can see our services. This is the default. This is now the client. Then we have here the server. It's not yet showing any data, but it will appear later on. Here we could see our different versions if we would have multiple versions. So they are time-stamped. Of the default service we already have here two versions. We have deployed this twice. So this is the earlier, this is the later one. This 100% shows here that 100% of the traffic is being directed there. Okay, nothing is shown there. All right, so that's it. App Engine deployment to Google Cloud Platform. You need to do quite a few steps, but most of those steps are related to configure your application so that you are using correct database connections, and then you are sending your HTTP requests to correct addresses. So those maybe were the bulk of our modifications to our application to make it work. These YAML files you need to write as well. These are critical to defining how the services should be executed by the App Engine. So, do you have any questions at this moment? If not, you can also ask later on. And this recording will be available in the course Moodle page later on, sometime today. Okay, no questions. So thank you for participating and have a nice day. Bye.